Providing context as much as possible. And it's something that I work to bring to the anchor desk, make sure people understand why we're telling them about something and how it can potentially affect maybe not their day-to-day, but their neighbor's day-to-day. An employee at a federal prison in Petersburg has pleaded guilty in connection to an inmate's death. Dozens of police cruisers raced to Rich Neck Elementary School at 2 p.m. for reports of a shooter inside the building. When they got there, they were horrified, stunned to find that the shooter was 6 years old. This week, schools across America are celebrating the joy of reading, and I, the resident bookworm, got a chance to celebrate with them today.
I'm tired of the vigils, the well-meaning thoughts and prayers, and the hand-wringing. We need action.
Sick and tired of it all. A call to action from the superintendent of Richmond City Public Schools, Jason Cameras, after a student he just watched walk across the stage. A student's hand he just shook was gunned down outside the Altria Theater in Richmond. You're watching 8 News at 5. I'm Deanna Allbrittin. Well, tonight the VCU Rams are gearing up for the first round of the 2023 NCAA tournament. This year, the team had its best season in more than a decade. We had a lot of races between women in particular and women with backgrounds in law enforcement. Is that something that we're seeing a trend of maybe more broadly, or that you think we might?
We are now less than an hour away officially from flipping the switch and lighting up all of these buildings in downtown Richmond. So exciting.
Attention all drivers, when the weather is hazy like we have been talking about over the last few days, or foggy like it can get some mornings, remember to drive with your lights on. Obviously, the superintendent, very emotional. He was clearly still almost tearing up as he spoke today about how tired he is of his kids being shot. New tonight, it may have been the greatest escape plan of all time until it was flattened like a pancake. 2 inmates at a Newport News jail who used a toothbrush and a metal object to tunnel their way out of jail, Shawshank Redemption style, get caught at where else? An IHOP. Hours after their getaway. According to Virginia State Police, Broadnax Police Chief Joe Carey was killed in a crash near the border of Mecklenburg and Brunswick counties. We do have an email just into our newsroom from them. This is a picture of Joe Carey right here. They do say that he is a 66-year-old survived by his wife, 4 sons, a daughter, and several grandchildren. A change to the move over law now requires drivers to slow down or switch lanes when passing any stopped vehicles with hazards or other caution signals on. But are people really doing that? 13 pages here. He says this is unacceptable. So I have been digging through this report tonight, finding what else the state has found here. Bathroom doors nailed shut. 8 News is honoring Black history. The legacy of slavery and treating humans as property makes it difficult for many Black Americans to trace their ancestry. Many of us hit a wall at emancipation when it becomes more difficult to learn about those who didn't live to see freedom.
But Deanna, you recently traced your history even further back and found ancestors born before the founding of this country.
Yeah, Eric, and it turns out that they lived for generations right here in Central Virginia. And this is my journey of uncovering my roots. Finally, so close to where my ancestors once toiled. Part of the former Mount Airy plantation in Warsaw, Virginia, not some unknown Alabama cotton plantations like my family once thought. The connection from Alabama to Virginia through a man named Albert Wormley, born around 1845. A link Library of Virginia archivist like Lydia Newroth helped me verify after I spent hours and hours researching.
I'm curious about the other side, so how you worked back from like what you've been able to trace from your most recent ancestors to make the jump to Albert.
So going back from like my grandfather Percy.
Yeah.
Yes. Working backwards from my mom's father, my grandfather Percy Wormley. His father was Albert Wormley, who can be traced through marriage records and census records showing that Albert living in Perry County, Alabama with Albert Wormley Sr., my great-great-grandfather. That's where the historian Richard Dunn says Albert Sr. and his family members were sent between 1854 and 1865, along with 218 other enslaved people. all leaving Mount Airy Plantation to work the cotton fields of Alabama.
Okay, so his parents were eventually moved to Alabama.
Yes. Their painful story of family separation, not unfamiliar for Black people enslaved in the U.S., but clues in the census. Some family members living near Albert Sr. in the same township decades later are heartening.
Like, you're seeing these actual names
Yeah,
from Virginia show
yes.
up in Uniontown?
Yeah,
in that area.
Yeah, in that area. Some family, not already sold, reunified in small ways, and the key I needed.
I feel like you've gotten more confirmation than most people doing their family history ever get. I would be pretty confident in saying that this is the same person.
Feeling certain now, I delve further back from Albert Sr., looking for connections up my 148-person pre-emancipation family tree, all enslaved at some point at Mount Airy. Both born in 1766. My oldest known family, Frankie and Israel Yateman, found in some of the earliest surviving will and tax records.
That's Israel.
The joy in finding an ancestor amid the sea of pain so many African Americans know well, seeing a human family name listed as property next to a chair.
But in all the trauma uncovered in this process is so much triumph that my great-great-grandfather, 20 years old when the Civil War ended, survived. That I, 158 years later, have thrived, pursuing my passion, working for pay, just 1 hour away from where he and generations of my family toiled for none at all. I have become my ancestors' wildest dreams.
Well, you know, honestly didn't know that this story broadcast over the land that my family was enslaved on is really powerful. I'll tell you that this process was really emotional for me. Obviously, I'm getting a little emotional now. And there were times where I thought that I might not tell it. And it was hard. It was a difficult process, but I think that that speaks to the impact of this story, not just for me and not just for my family, but for many others in the Northern Neck, many other descendants.
Well, you know, you did the work that a lot of us may not be able to do, and were able to find that key that was able to link back where you could make that connection. And like she said, you got further than a lot of people were able to get. So although it was somewhat painful, and I did see you going through the process, and I saw the emotional roller coaster that you were on, but this is important work, tying the present to the past in a way that is extremely meaningful.
Yeah, and it is hard to do. And it's hard to do because a lot of the records that are made for white people in this time, for free people, just don't exist for enslaved people. Like I said, they were property. They were taxed alongside property. And so I put together another story online because I want to help others get started on their genealogical searches too. I've actually already had a couple of people reach out to me just from seeing the promotion for this story. And so you can get started on your journey as well on WRIC.com. The folks at the Library of Virginia were very gracious in helping with this story as well, and they can help you out too.
Great work, Deanna. Great work.
8 News at 6 starts now.
You're watching 8 News at 6. I'm Deanna Allbrittin.
I'm Eric Phillips. The hazy smoke from Canada's wildfires are here yet again.
That's right. You may be feeling some irritation in your lungs and maybe your eyes. Take a look at this view from Lebanon, Virginia. This sunrise illuminated the hazing conditions in this mountain town in the southwest part of the state. Billy Bowling, who took this video, said, quote, "It smells like a fireplace outside." Wow, Lebanon, it is hazy over there.
Right. We've got 8 News reporter Victoria Lucas on deck with everything you need to know to stay safe in these conditions.
But first, before we get there, let's start with Storm Tracker 8 meteorologist John Bernier. JB, how is it looking across Central Virginia? A former Powhatan High School band director pleaded guilty to 8 sex-related charges. 36-year-old Andrew Sneed was arrested a year ago after investigators learned he had initiated sexual contact with minors over several years. The Powhatan Commonwealth's Attorney's Office says Sneed was sentenced to 30 years in prison with 22 years suspended, meaning he'll spend 8 years behind bars. Upon his release from prison, he will be put under supervised probation and will have to register as a sex offender. A late night gas leak at a major local industrial plant has some community members fuming about the fumes. 8 News reporter Sierra Krug joins us from Hopewell, where residents say they were confused and worried all night after hearing alarms and seeing flashing lights outside of Hopewell's Advanced 6 plant. A new lawsuit filed against the state of Virginia says the Commonwealth is wrongfully denying 300,000 Virginians their constitutional right to vote, citing a Civil War era law as justification. Capitol Bureau reporter Tyler Englander joins us live in the Digital Center. So Tyler, what does that law say?
Now to that influential Supreme Court decision, justices ruling to strike down affirmative action policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina today.
Chief Justice John Roberts saying higher education schools can no longer take race into consideration when making admissions decisions. ABC's Im Nguyen has the latest.
The 4th of July weekend is nearly here, and as you celebrate, law enforcement wants to make sure that you're safe on the roads and on the water.
8 News reporter Alexis Bellamy joins us now live from Richmond with everything you need to know about boating responsibly. Alexis, take a look at this photo right here. It's a picture of Lover's Leap Trail at Natural Tunnel State Park in Duffield, Virginia. That's on the border of North Carolina in Southwest Virginia. Now, take a look at this. See the difference? All of these oranges and yellows. Well, the first photo was how a colorblind person would see the stunning view. Now, with the help of these viewfinders right here installed at one of the park's gazebos, everyone can see colors in the magnificent view. Here's one man's reaction after looking through the viewfinder. The chief ranger at the park is colorblind and spearheaded this initiative. He says, quote, "I am looking forward to seeing the colorful fall foliage this year."
And tonight, Positively Richmond, a shout out to one woman who is watching us right now, Miss Laverne Ruth, who turned 100 years old today.
I was at her birthday party earlier today, helping the Petersburg native celebrate the big milestone. Family, community members, and the nursing home she lives in, as you can hear, all helped pull off this surprise party that includes her lunch buddy, Miss Pat, who you can see here, who kept this secret through all their meals they eat together. So congratulations and happy birthday, Miss Ruth, on 100 years.
And of course, they were so shocked and happy when they saw you walk in today.
Yes, they were. And I was so honored to be there. What a big milestone. It was so great to celebrate with her.
A centenarian, congratulations. Tonight, we're hearing from Joe Morrissey after the Henrico sheriff banned him from both jails. You're watching 8 News at 11. I'm Eric Phillips.
I'm Deanna Allbrittin. Sheriff Elisa Gregory alleges the state senator left his children unattended and threatened at least one deputy. This is the first time we're speaking with Morrissey since his rift with his estranged wife went public amid allegations of infidelity, parental absence, and child abuse. But tonight, he explained to me why he feels he's now being unfairly targeted.
I called him a obstructionist.
State Senator Joe Morrissey tonight attempting to correct the Henrico County Sheriff's record of what happened inside the Henrico County Jail this past Saturday morning, saying the claims he became verbally abusive and made threatening remarks to a deputy were overblown.
I didn't call him a name. I called him an obstructionist, and that's for your audience to interpret it.
A nearly 2-minute video from the incident we don't yet have permission to use does show Morrissey shouting expletives at least 2 other times at a deputy. It's unclear what happens immediately before or after, but it does show him calling the sheriff after jail staff says he'd left his 3 small children unattended in the lobby and parking lot for more than an hour while he and another lawyer visited a client. According to Morrissey, they were never left alone because there were deputies working out front.
I said, where can the children gather? Right here. Then I went back, got them juice, came back, and they had been set up at a table, and they were coloring. Then they made airplanes, and as kids sometimes do, they got a little rambunctious.
According to the sheriff's office report, Morrissey's kids were playing with the light switch, running around, climbing on tables and chairs, drawing on the smart board, and throwing a football in the lobby. When Morrissey was pulled from visitation to handle the situation, the report states he advised the deputy to, quote, threaten to place handcuffs on the child. The next time, after one child was reportedly in the parking lot alone, they say he indicated he would have the children stay in the car unattended until he was done. But Morrissey says he was told he needed to leave, and that's when he argued with the deputy.
I came out and one of the deputies told me they had to leave. I said, well, it's a public place, and they're kids. And at that point, he said, well, you're going to have to leave too, so I'm not leaving.
Morrissey says the sheriff initially told him he didn't need to leave, and he was surprised to find she'd later banned him. The release sent out today says Morrissey will be notified of the effective date of his suspension.